today let's read about Magic Tree House Firecracker, Benjamin Franklin. A nonfiction companion to Magic House 32, To the Future, Ben Franklin. When Jack and Andy came back from the adventure in Magic House 32, To the Future, Ben Franklin, they had lots of questions. How did a cat teach him about electricity? What was Ben Franklin's first job? What are some of Ben's most famous inventions? Why do you have so many nicknames? It's time to be a firecracker with Jack and Annie. Let's go! I love this blue. Contents: 1. Benjamin Franklin. 2. Benjamin Franklin and Philadelphia. 3. Scientist and inventor. 4. Return to England. 5. Ben and the Revolution. 6. Final years. 7. Founding father. Doing more research. Bibliography index. Chapter 1. Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was born more than 300 years ago. Today, he is still one of the most famous and beloved men in American history. Benjamin was a great scientist, thinker, inventor, writer, and printer. He created or helped create the first lending library, and the first fire department, the first public hospital, and the first post office in America. When he wasn't working, Benjamin used his spare time wisely. He played music and taught himself 5 languages. He also learned to swim, and many years after he died, he was made a member of the International Swimming Hall of Fame. What? After he died? They used a skeleton! But Benjamin was probably one of the best known as one as America's founding fathers. His wisdom helped guide the country in the struggle to break free from English rule and become a new nation. People often wonder how this poor boy, with just 2 years of school, was able to lead such an amazing life. Benjamin Franklin's story is hard to believe. Boston. Benjamin was born in Boston, Massachusetts, in the 1506. At the time of his birth, the United States wasn't a country. It was divided into 13 colonies and ruled by England, a country thousands of miles across the ocean. Boston was part of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Because the city is at the ocean deep harbor, is one of the busiest seaports in the colonies. The Franklin family. Before Benjamin was born, his father, Julius, had left for England to make a new life in Boston. He had a shop that sold candles and soap that were made there. Joseph has 7 children, Miss Workwright, who later died. He had 10 more with his second wife, including Benjamin. So, Joseph had 17 children. That's a lot. I can't believe him got 17 children. That's superhero child. Oh dear. That was the 15th child. Oh dear. Ben was the 15th child and the youngest son. How about the 17th one? People knew Joseph as a wise man who could count on to good advice. Franklin in a small house with 4 rooms. As a boy, Benjamin was taught himself to swim. At 11, he wanted to swim faster, so he made wooden paddles that fit over his hands, or maybe flippers. He did swim a lot faster, but his wrists got very tight from doing the paddles. One Ben taught himself to cut a pool across the water. That's funny. Benjamin the Apprentice. Because most families were large and needed money, kids in Benjamin's time went to work when they were very young. Many signed for doing apprentices. Apprentices worked for expert craftsmen to learn skills in such as shoe or furniture making so they could make a living. They signed contracts promising to work a certain number of years. Many promised to work until they turned 21. By the time he was 10, Benjamin had only been to school for 2 years. His father had him to go to work and gave him a job at a soap and candle shop. Benjamin spent his day trimming candle wicks and running around. Benjamin didn't like his job. What he did like was reading. James, Benjamin's older brother, owned a print shop to print books, newspapers, and articles. Georgia asked him to take Benjamin on as apprentice, then signed a contract promising to work for James until he was 21. A contract that he obeyed to his brother and not get married, play cards, or drink alcohol. In exchange, James could pay for his food, some clothes, and a place to live. Serious, Georgia was a brave man who ran away and became a sailor. But here are some tips to printing. Step 1. Setting up letters on paper. Step 2. Inking papers with ink bowls. Step 3. Pulling a lever on a printer called the devil sail that presses the ink into the paper. Today, early printing press, it was funny. Today, printing presses are usually electricity, but Benjamin's day people operate them by hand. Benjamin's main job was to set up the letter one by one on the printing press. He would trudge door to door, selling a newspaper called the New England Courant, which James published. Benjamin in his books. Benjamin was happy as Faden. Since there were no libraries in Boston and he didn't have money to buy books, he borrowed them from friends and read things from the shop. Every night Benjamin sat up late reading and studying. He became his own best teacher. By the time he was a teenager, he learned more math, better English grammar, but some great reading skills and much more. Benjamin was interested in almost everything because he loved the sea. He read books on sailing. He even read a book urging people to stop eating meat. He actually stopped for a short time. Mr. Silence Stockhood. When Benjamin was 16, he wanted to write for a newspaper. James was so jealous of him that he wouldn't allow it. And he secretly began to write funny articles that made fun of people and things. But he didn't want anyone, especially his brother, to know that he was a writer. So he slipped his article under his print shop door. He signed them as Miss Silence Stockgood. People all over town were curious about who Mr. Stockgood was. Ben pretended Mr. Stockgood was a widow. He later got letters from men asking to marry her. What is a widow? Apprentices! That's so funny! Apprentices were often harshly treated. Although Benjamin and James were closely together, James had a bad temper, often hit or yelled at his brother. It wasn't his law for apprentices to leave before the contract was up. In 1723, with several years left on his contract, Benjamin ran away from Boston. A new life. I packed back a few clothes and took the small amount of money he made selling his books. When Benjamin boarded a boat to New York City, he was about a job. Since he had no work from New York, he headed to Fidelia, a city about 100 miles away. In order to get there, Ben walked 50 miles. Then he took a ship. Then he rowed a boat. It was a hard trip, and he felt sick. He didn't think drinking lots of cold water would make him feel better. He drank a lot. Benjamin was dry, dirty, hungry, and very tired. He went into a bakery and spent a precious few of his coins for 3 rolls. When he strolled down the street, eating one with other 2 tucked under his arms. Since Benjamin's pocket was stuffed with shirts and socks, he was quite a sight. Learning to write. At print shop, Benjamin often read articles in a journal called the Spectre. He tried to write the same article from memory. After he finished writing, he read the Spectre again. When anything that he written was good enough, he would write it over and over. Benjamin became an excellent writer. Throughout his life, he produced books and thousands of letters and articles. He sent or received over 15,000 letters in his life. His most famous book in history is the story of his life, Pepper to Benjamin Franklin of Philadelphia. Benjamin spent his first night in Philadelphia in the rooming house. Without even taking off his clothes, he flopped down into bed and slept for hours. The next day, he went out to find a job. Benjamin wandered into a dusty little print shop. Mr. Kenner, his owner, agreed to hire him to find a room to rent his nearby house. The couple that owned the house had a daughter about Benjamin's age, Deborah Reed. A few days later, Deborah had passed Benjamin on the street and laughed at sight of this strange young man who looked so funny. Now he was living in her parents' house, Deborah Reed, a New England and the living governor. Benjamin began to make friends in Philadelphia. He never even got to know Sir William Keith, the colony's English governor. Years after Ben's arrived, he wanted to open his own printing shop. The best place to buy a press was in London, England. Governor Kev was promised he would send letters to people in London, agreeing to pay any debts that Benjamin might own after buying the press. Then he traveled to England on a ship. After 7 weeks of storms and rough seas, he finally landed. To his dismay, he found out that the governor had lied. He didn't send any letters at all. Oh no. Benjamin didn't have any money and badly needed a job. He found one at Samuel Palmer Printing House, a famous London printer. He met him 3 times swimming in the River Thames, which runs through London. His swimming skills got so much attention that a rich man offered him a job teaching his children to swim. Benjamin had so many things he wanted to do that he didn't take the job. His own print shop. After 18 months in London, he returned to Philadelphia. For a short time, Benjamin went back to the Cameras print shop. By the time he was 73, he and partner had borrowed enough money to buy Cameras business. Benjamin's shop became one of the busiest and most successful print shops in the colonies. A busy life. Miss Kenner had published a new paper. It was not a success. And in 1729, Benjamin bought it from him and named the Pennsylvania Gazette. He wrote many of the articles and often signed them with false names. Benjamin's newspaper was the most popular in the colonies. Benjamin also started a club for men called the Junto. He met every Friday evening to talk about business and share ideas, especially how about to make Philadelphia a better city. Poor Richard's Almanac. In 1532, Benjamin began writing a booklet called the Poor Richard's Almanac. His son is named Poor Richard. He read all kinds of interesting and useful things in it. There were weather predictions, sunrise and sunset times, and a calendar for the year. Benjamin also put in a lot of good household tips. You can get recipes for making wine and getting sugar from beets. The Elements was full of poems, jokes, and stories. Benjamin gave advice with little sayings called the aphorisms. One of the most famous is the early to bed and early to rise, making the man healthy, wealthy, and wise. People love his silly jokes and funny stories. The almanac was so popular that for 25 years, Benjamin printed up to 10,000 copies a year. A duty to help. Benjamin believed that people had a duty to improve their lives in their cities. His ideas about how to make Philadelphia a better place actually changed lives then and now. Because everyone in Philadelphia used fireplaces and candles, the city wooden buildings often caught fire. There were no firefighters to fight the blaze. In 1536, Benjamin organized the city's first volunteer fire department. As his fire chief, he and all volunteer filled liter buckets with water and rice to put out any fire. Benjamin the postmaster. In 1737, Benjamin was appointed postmaster of Philadelphia. For a while, his printing shop, also the post office. 16 years later, Benjamin got a job as a deputy postmaster general of America. He wanted faster meals to rise. He figured out the fastest routes. He spent much on the next year riding 1,600 miles over roads used in mail carriers. His work paid off, and carriers began to deliver mail twice a week instead of just once. Benjamin on the streets. Benjamin then turned his attention to Philadelphia streets. They were dirty and uneven. Benjamin came up with a plan to pave the streets and have the street clean. At night, the street light was so dim that people couldn't see where they were going. All burning, the lights made them sooty and dark. Benjamin invented a new four-sided light that was brighter. There was funnel in each light to draw out the smoke. Remembering how he had yearned for books as a boy, he created the first public lending library in Philadelphia. When people paid to join it, they could take out the books they wanted without having to buy them. First citizen of Philadelphia. Because Benjamin did so much, people have called him first citizen of Philadelphia. In 1748, at the age of 42, Benjamin started working as printing press. His work, especially Poor Richard's Almanac, had made him rich enough to live comfortably. He wanted to spend his rest of his life doing good things for others and spend more time on scientific research. Ben's list of virtues. When he was 20, and later, when he wrote a book about his life, Ben made a list of virtues. Ben's ways to live a good life. Here are some of them. 1. Be serious. Don't lie or say what you don't think or mean. 2. Silence. Only talk when you have something worth saying, not something silly or unkind. Forgetfully. Don't waste things or spend a lot of money on items you don't need. Spend only to help yourself and others. Cleanliness. Keep your clothes, your house, and yourself clean. Temperance. Don't eat or drink too much. Industry. Stay busy doing useful things. That's so interesting, isn't it? Oh, what about the scientist inventor of the capital trade? It's interesting, right? But not now. Bye bye and see you next time.